Hey everyone, my name is Steve Chu, and in this episode, I'm going to teach you a bunch of different ways on how to become a millionaire. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel. That way, as I release more content like this, you will get notified. And if you are on YouTube, click on the alert notification button. Today we're going to talk about money, and specifically how to make more of it, and different ways that I've made over $1 million in my lifetime. Now, if you're living paycheck to paycheck or saddled with debt, you probably think that it's impossible to become a millionaire unless you win the lottery or you inherit a large sum of money. And it's true. If you continue down your current path of spending all the money that you earn or working at a dead-end job, you will never ever become a millionaire. But if you formulate a plan, start now, and develop the right habits, you can easily learn how to become a millionaire within the next decade or so, or sooner, depending on the path that you choose to take. Now, this episode is going to show you all the different ways that I've personally made $1 million in the past 20 years. And keep in mind that this is not about pinching pennies, saving every last cent, or sacrificing your livelihood. After all, being a cheap ass is not a fulfilling way to live your life. And instead, I'm going to show you different ways to become a millionaire while splurging on the things, activities, and people that you love. But before we begin, here are a couple principles that you must understand. So before you embark on your millionaire journey, you got to repeat after me. Your day job salary will never lead to life-changing money. Now, with the exception of a couple of professions, your salary is often just enough to keep you alive and get by in life. Now, you might make enough to splurge every now and then, but your job will never lead to a sudden windfall of money. However, it is important to note that it's impossible to get rich unless you spend less than you earn. And one of my personal fundamental beliefs, because I'm Asian, is that you should focus on spending money on activities that bring you joy and then ruthlessly cut costs on every other expense. Eliminate your expenses on non-essential goods and try to get the best deal possible on all purchases, even if you can afford to pay full price. And above all else, managing your spending, even if you start making a lot of money, is the key to amassing long-term wealth. Now, many people I know, and these are successful entrepreneurs, start blowing their cash left and right once they start earning it. Do not be one of these people. Because overall, if you earn more and spend less, you'll be way ahead on your journey towards becoming a millionaire. Now, the other thing that you need to realize is that making life-changing money is almost always a slow and steady process. Becoming a millionaire is not going to happen overnight, and if you're currently embarking on a journey that promises great riches in a short period of time, stop it right now. Creating the foundation for monetary generation is never quick and easy. It is a gradual process that requires patience and consistent effort. In addition, there are no guarantees. Just because you work your butt off or you invest a large sum of money on a project doesn't mean that it's going to be successful or make you rich. So as a result, the best way to achieve millionaire status is by planting as many money seeds as possible in hopes that a couple will grow, because luck always plays a huge factor. Method 1 is to work at a company that gives you equity. Now, remember that I said working a day job will never make you life-changing money. There's actually a couple of exceptions to this rule. Now, if you work at a startup company that grants you equity in the form of stock options, then those options actually have a chance to become a huge windfall of money if the company experiences a liquidation event like going public. And in fact, this was my initial strategy for life-changing wealth when I first graduated from Stanford with an electrical engineering degree. My plan was to work for as many startup companies as possible for about 3 years each, amass a huge portfolio of stock options from various tech companies, and just roll the dice. Unfortunately, I never followed through with my plan. I ended up staying at the same startup company for 17 years. So what happened there? What can I say? I actually fell in love with the people that I worked with and the technology that I was working on. Anyway, at this company, I lived through 2 major downturns in the early 2000s and 2009. I survived multiple layoffs and eventually earned a decent-sized windfall of money. In 2013, my startup company was acquired, and I came away with just shy of $1 million in terms of stock options and retention bonuses. Now, while making $1 million this way sounds pretty good, I probably could have made 8x more had I followed my original strategy, because I actually got a couple of offers at these other companies that are worth multi-billion dollars. And during my 17-year stint at the company, I actually almost left twice for two different startups. I was just thinking about this the other day because this one company's stock who I own is now over $200. If I had worked for both of these companies, my stock options would be worth a high seven figures today. But don't get me wrong, I don't regret working at this company one bit, as I developed many great relationships, which I continue to cherish today. But it all comes down to a little bit of luck. The larger the stock option portfolio that you can amass, the more chances you have of making it rich. So here's method number 2. You can actually buy stocks for companies that you love and hold onto them forever. I was actually very fortunate that my parents introduced me to stock investing at a very early age. And back in the 80s and the 90s, I remember relaxing with a copy of Investor's Business Daily at the dinner table and talking stocks with my parents all day long. And when I first started buying stocks, I could only afford to buy them in blocks of 5 to 10 shares. So my parents would actually loan me extra money to purchase in larger quantities and compensate for the high trading fees. Back in the day, making a trade cost around $50 a pop, sometimes more depending on the size of the transaction. Anyway, starting in elementary school, I put all of my lucky money, hongbals, and allowance into Microsoft and Oracle and held onto these stocks for decades. And in fact, I still have shares of these companies today, and combined, these two stocks have made me over $400K alone. Now, I'm not advocating that you put all of your money into the stock market, but if you have a company that you love, that you are confident will do well in the long run, it is actually worth investing a portion of your money and holding that stock for a long time. Now, this strategy has done really well for me over the years as I've bought companies like Facebook, Nvidia, Medtronic, which combined with Microsoft and Oracle have made me nearly $1 million. Right now, one of my holdings is actually Tesla, and it started to do well relatively recently. Now, personally, I actually mostly invest in tech companies because that's what I know, and so you should probably just stick with what you know if you decide to go with this strategy. My buddy Billy Murphy actually invested a significant amount of money in Apple after Steve Jobs announced the iPhone, and he basically lives off of this money today. But, if you're watching this right now, please take everything I say about stock investing with a grain of salt. But buying stock for a company you believe in can actually lead to enormous gains in the long run. But don't fall into the trap of day trading. During the dot-com bust of 2001, I actually bought and sold stocks kind of haphazardly. I ended up making lots of money initially, but subsequently lost almost all of my gains. But the stocks I did hold on to in the long run have all performed amazingly well. The third method that I made over $1 million is by starting my e-commerce business and my other online businesses. Now, according to the book, The Millionaire Next Door, which I highly recommend that you read if you haven't read it already, 66% of millionaires are self-employed, and most of these folks are entrepreneurs. Now, this is no coincidence, as entrepreneurs are the backbone of the economy. And those of you who have followed me for a long time know that my first successful business was actually an e-commerce store selling handkerchiefs online. And one of the reasons why my wife and I chose to open an online store versus a brick and mortar business was because it required very little investment to get started. And in addition, we wanted to make significant money within a reasonably short time frame, about a year. So with just $630 in initial startup capital, my wife and I managed to turn our little shop into a 7-figure business, and we've been running our store for over 10 years now. Crazy, right? Now, my wife and I didn't start our entrepreneurship journey until we were well into our 30s, and looking back, we wish we started much, much earlier. But it took us almost a decade to realize how little we were getting paid at our day jobs compared to what we could be making with our own business. And overall, starting an e-commerce business is probably one of the best ways to make life-changing money, period, or any online business for that matter. Method number 4, start a blog, podcast, or a YouTube channel. Now, my mom still does not understand how I make money with mywifequitherjob.com, but here's all that you need to know. If you can create content that attracts an audience, then you can make life-changing money. Now, most people have the false impression that you have to be an expert in any given topic in order to attract an audience, but that is absolutely not the case. For example, my buddy Josh Dorkin, he runs Bigger Pockets, the largest real estate podcast and website on the internet. He knew nothing about real estate, so he simply created a forum where he could solicit help from other real estate investors. I started documenting my e-commerce journey online in 2009. I definitely was not an expert at selling physical products, and quite frankly, I didn't really know what I was doing. But people were attracted to the candor and the authenticity of my writing, which allowed me to build an audience over time. And today, mywifequitherjob.com makes over 7 figures per year, and most of that is profit. Now, when it comes to creating content online, you first have to realize that you must have a skill or a craft that you excel at that you can actually share with the world. But you don't need to be an expert. You just need to know more than the audience that you're addressing. Now, on my podcast, there are countless examples of people who decided to put themselves out there and started making life-changing money. So for example, my buddy Joe Jitsukawa and his buddy Bart Kwan, he started making funny skits on YouTube, and now they make 7 figures making funny videos on YouTube. My buddy Eric Chang from Stanford, he was interested in underwater photography and created a thriving publication called Wet Pixel. My buddy Tan decided to document his productivity hacks online and created a 7-figure blog over at asianefficiency.com. Now, if you want to make life-changing money and you have a time frame of about 3 to 5 years, then start putting out content now. It doesn't matter what medium you choose as long as you pick one and you stick with it on a consistent basis. Method number 5, invest in real estate. Now, the main problem with real estate investing is that it requires a lot of upfront capital to get started. So as a result, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, investing in real estate may be out of your reach. And the only reason that I became interested in real estate in the first place is because my parents put my brother and I through college without going into major debt with a few strategically placed housing investments. And in fact, my parents bought one property for each of us at a young age, held onto it for 15 plus years, and then sold them off when it came time to pay for our college tuition. Now, the proper way to invest in real estate is beyond the scope of this episode, and if you're interested in learning more, I highly recommend that you visit BiggerPockets. But I do want to say up front that all of my real estate success has been almost 100% luck. Because I live in Silicon Valley, which is one of the most ridiculous places in the world to live in, the houses that I purchased in the past 2 decades have increased in value many-fold, yielding well over $1 million in appreciation. And just like stocks, real estate investing is all funny money until you sell, but there are a couple of things to be said about real estate that are worth mentioning. For one thing, real estate is an excellent hedge against inflation. The mortgage on your house stays constant for a 30-year fixed loan, and due to inflation reducing the value of a dollar, the amount that you owe actually becomes less over time because your mortgage stays constant. And 2, if you plan on living in your house for the foreseeable future, it's actually very difficult to lose money if you decide to buy versus rent. Now, my friends who have been successful with real estate on kind of like a larger scale, they tend to buy income-generating properties en masse and consistently trade up to larger properties over time by taking advantage of the 1031 exchange rule. Now, if you don't know what that is, look it up because that's actually very important when it comes to real estate investing. And the final method that I've used to make $1 million is to surround yourself with other millionaires. Now, this last method is not a strategy per se, but it always leads to amazing results. And in general, I'm actually very selective with who I spend my time with because I want to be surrounded by people who challenge me to try new things. I want to be around people who care about their lives and strive to be the best that they can be. So for example, my buddy Lars Hundley convinced me to start selling on Amazon long ago, which increased my e-commerce profits by an additional 6 figures practically overnight. Thanks a lot, Lars. I really appreciate that, buddy. Another one of my friends, Grant Baldwin, who's been on the podcast, introduced me to online webinars, which I promptly used to generate over $60,000 of revenue on my very first try. My business partner, Tony Anderson, encouraged me to start my own event, and today running the Seller Summit with her is one of the most rewarding activities I take part in every single year. Now, while surrounding yourself with other millionaires may not directly lead to money, you'll learn a ton just by interacting with people who want to win. When you hang out with people who are constantly learning and growing, their energy and presence will rub off on you and help you become a millionaire. All right, so when I look back at how I've made life-changing money over the years, it all comes down to putting yourself out there and giving yourself a chance to succeed. Because in the end, learning how to become a millionaire is less about the money and more about the skills that you develop along the way. Because today, even if I were to lose all my wealth, I'm actually really confident that I could easily make it all back with the knowledge that I've gained over the years. And in the end, I sincerely believe that anyone can become a millionaire, but it requires the proper mindset, consistency, and a little bit of luck to succeed. So continue to plant your money seeds and eventually you'll get there. Hope you enjoyed this video. Now, if you like what you saw, there's actually a lot more where that came from if you subscribe to my channel below. And if you are interested in learning how to sell physical products online, then click over here and take my free 6-day mini course where I'll walk you through everything that you need to know to get started in e-commerce. Thanks for watching.